Hello everybody, Father Rich here. I watched a Gigi video a few days back, and he was saying he felt kind of dirty and scruffy because he hadn't taken a shower yet. I haven't taken a shower in 3 days. It's been over 100 degrees since July 2nd, and I don't have AC. So Gigi kind of made me laugh. I'm talking about Garage Geek. I don't even know if Garage Geek knows who Gigi Allen is. But anyways, I'm going to do a Acid Archives video. I did a couple of these, and I thought I'd do another one, you know. And I mean, I was listening on July 4th, I was listening to a lot of 60s music, and I was blasting it loud because one of my dogs freaks out with the fireworks. And the best way to cover it up is with music. And so I took 5 and I thought, I'll do an Acid Archives. Now I thought this was going to be in there, but I don't think SRC is in the Acid Archives. I was kind of surprised. It is on Capitol Records, but there are quite a few entries in the Acid Archives that are on major labels. Anyways, let's get started. We're going to start with the Ant Trip Ceremony. 24 Hours is the name of the record. Now, this was recorded in, I think, a hall. In basically 24 hours, I believe, in 2 different sessions. In Ohio, if I didn't say. And I think it was recorded on a 2-track tape. It isn't like hi-fi. It isn't audio file at all. I mean, it starts off, the first song, Locomotive Lamp. It starts off with just this very primitive, very unprofessional sounding guitar, rhythm guitar going. And then it goes into this, into the song. The vocals are not great. I mean, I don't think the guy has a great voice. And he kind of sounds like he's ready to take a nap, or he's disinterested. I don't know what it is. It's a pretty trippy album. It's not really a psychedelic album per se. It's kind of like a lo-fi rock album. It might have some psych tinges. It might have some folk tinges. But it's pretty much a rock album. And it's a pretty good one at that. I rather like it. I don't think it's a great album. It's not one I'm going to highly recommend. It's got a great cover. But yeah, the Ant Trip Ceremony. Not much of a review there, but let's see what they say in the Acid Archives. Ant Trip Ceremony. Now this is a reissue, and supposedly it's the first ever legitimate reissue. All the others are bootlegs. But I see there was a gruesome reissue in 2008, so I don't know about that claim. Because this issue came out after 2008. Anyways, odd, late night, stone folk rock and blues rock that sounds like it was recorded at 4 a.m. by a bunch of guys on their way down from an acid trip. They're still turned on, but getting tired and reflective. Instruments ramble on each in its own time frame, supporting anemic, almost apathetic vocals, sometimes fed through weird filters. A few popular covers, some Grateful Dead type intros, but mostly spooky, college student, hippie, folk rock. Not a real fave of mine, but clearly an interesting LP that hits a unique mood and comes in an unusual sleeve. Note the hookahs. The album was recorded as a farewell document as some members were graduating from Oberlin. It's very highly rated by some. The first counterfeit is close. Original copies have And yeah, it does have kind of a very early Grateful Dead feel, like their first album. Now this next one, I like more than the Ant Trip Ceremony. And this one is The Beat of the Earth. Now this is very hippie-ish. In fact, it's all one jam. Side one and side two, it's just a long continuous jam. There's some chanting vocals. You can't really understand most of the vocals. There are sections where you can hear clearly what he's saying. But it's just a jam. It's very psychedelic. It does get kind of trancey, or like in a groove. I don't know, like a trance type groove. I don't know what the word I'm thinking of. And I think this was recorded in 1968. I don't know if I mentioned, but the Ant Trip Ceremony was recorded in 1968. And this copy here, I bought this early on in my VC watching days. And Deadwax66 bought this album, and he bought this version of it. It's basically just a white cover with these two pieces of paper glued on each side, and it's even coming off over here in this corner. But yeah, this record is an artistic statement. It's very trippy, very hippie. It's not for everyone. I had another record, like a kind of like a long hippie jam called Uba, and I didn't like that one. And I sent that one to Psyche Derek's way. He probably sold it though on his Discogs page. All right, The Beat of the Earth. Where is this one at? Here it is, the very bottom. Beat of the Earth. And this is if you have an original, it's rated 4. And the ratings aren't how good they are, but how rare. And 4 is quite rare. And I think the Ant Trip Ceremony was also a 4. But I don't have an original of either of those. The sleeve says, if you're looking for psychedelic music, do not buy this album unless you're looking for psychedelic music. A fair summing up of this demented, cerebral, yet playful journey. Beat of the Earth was heralded as one of the big discoveries of the late 1980s, and it certainly is one trancy organ, guitar, tribal, surf psych jam trip stretched over 2 full sides. Its unique nature is due to the marriage of the 1970s concept, improvised drone excursions, with an upbeat mid-1960s pre-hippie sound and vibe. Like an LA surf garage band, somehow time warped to Germany in 1972. This may be too far out for some, definitely, but I certainly admire it. Few musical experiences are as close to the organic chameleon flow of an LSD trip, even if the main creative force behind it was opposed to drugs. And then it goes on, talking about the guy that was behind it, Phil Pearlman. Yeah, it's a good album. It's definitely, if you're not into hippie music, you're not going to like it. And it's definitely a jam. And like it said, kind of a lot of organ in parts, a lot of trippy guitar. Now this next one is another one that is not a professionally sounding record, but I like it. It's a controversial record, and this one is an original, and it's from Spain, and it's Charles Manson. It's 12 songs, Charles Manson. This came out in 1971. There was a record called Lie that came out in 1970. And this is all those songs, but in a different order. Now, in the 1980s, I bought Lie on CD, and I didn't like it. It sounded like crap. This sounds a lot better. It's just got a more warm feel to it. It's some of these songs are very hippie and very trippy, and but others are just Charles Manson on guitar. He plays a very rhythmic guitar. His vocals are actually very good. I must admit, very emotive vocals. Really a very good singer. Too bad he was a whack job. But some of the songs have just him and guitar and maybe some bongos or percussion with it. But then there's others that have a second guitar. And those songs are very trippy. And overall, I think this is a pretty good album, man. I must say. Maybe better than the first two I showed, actually. Although I like Beat of the Earth the most. Okay, what do we got here? Okay. It doesn't have the Spanish one listed. But anyways, while baby boomer nostalgia can't save Woodstock and flower power from fading into history, the interest in their public nemesis, #1, seems to have no end. It seems to be reissued almost once per decade, as the fringe underground is happy to keep Charlie shot at the charts and print. Like private press specialists are quick to point out, Live would probably be a desirable item if it had been recorded by an unknown guy. Thanks to Manson's arresting 1950s small-town outlaw voice and cozy campfire edge folk chestnuts like Mechanical Man, Sick City, and Ego, the later is my personal pick, with a scary intensity and the girls' seductive Spawn Ranch harmonies. Yeah, I forgot to mention the background singers, man. They're pretty spooky in times. You've never heard protest songs like these before, a staple of any reasonably twisted record collection. The poster represents about half of the value. The ESP version is a legit second press for East Coast distribution and also came on an 8-track. There was an odd gatefold Spanish release on the Movie Play label from 1971. That's the one I have. And then they're talking about a number of other releases of it. So they didn't go into a lot of detail, actually, on what they thought of the actual record. But yeah, it's a pretty good record. He's a very good singer. I've heard online another session of him going into the studio, and he is very uncomfortable. He can't get through a song, and it's a mess. It's a mess. Now the fourth one. This is the most professionally recorded one of the bunch, actually. And it's The Other Half. Very psychedelic kind of cover. And this kind of represents what the album sounds like. It's a very hard rocking, and this might be a 68 again. And I don't know when the Manson one was recorded. Probably 69-ish. But yeah, this has Ron Holden, is it? Is his name? Ah, man, why can't I think it's something Holden. He played one of the Blue Shear albums, their third album. He was in some surf bands. The only thing, the first song is called Introduction, and it's got this crowd going, and it's like it's a live song, but you can tell it's not. I don't really like that. The actual song's okay, but I didn't like the way the album started. And then side one has another song, I Need You, which is a slow kind of a love song, and that one's kind of eh. But other than that, man, this is a very strong album. Very acid infused, hard rock infused guitars. And I like the vocalist a lot too. Side 2 probably is better than side 1. Although side 1 ends with I Need You and Osley eavesdrops. It ends on a really rockin' note, but side 2 is pretty good, man. And it What Can I Do For You? First half is kind of a slower bluesy type feel, and then it builds up to the end, and then it goes straight into What Can I Do For You? The other half. And it kind of starts out plodding along, kind of slow, but man, it builds into this some really good electric guitar work. That's a good album, man. All right, the other half. Now it has a picture here, but it's a different. That looks like a picture from a 7-inch single. Anyways, Randy Holden. I said Ron. Okay. A well-known, and this one is a 1. It's not that hard to get, and of course, you know, I have an original. A well-known Randy Holden vehicle in the typical and to me rather unappealing LA Psych hard rock transition style. Those growling teen macho vocals are always a drawback. The LP starts out weekly with a bad version of Feathered Fish. I think the Feathered Fish song is actually pretty good. And more mediocrity, while some better tracks can be found on side 2. There's blistering guitar work, of course, and very good guitar work, and some unusual R&B club influences. I forgot to mention that. Though it is a hard rock album, some of the songs have that R&B feel to it, kind of like the freak beat from the early or mid 60s in England, but this is way harder than that. The band occasionally rocks, but just as often goes slow and lead-footed. Holden fans will still want to get it, of course. Released in Germany in a different sleeve, the non-LP 45 is the best thing they did, in my opinion. Well, this guy did not like it. And my 5th and final one is the 3rd album released by the 13th Floor Elevators, and it's called Live. Now, if you look on Discogs, they'll have 3 studios albums listed, and they'll have this under comps. It's not a live album. In fact, I found out later that the actual live noise, which is pretty loud in parts, is actually taken from a bullfight. I don't think these guys ever played a live gig where they had that type of response that you see here on this. But what this is, it's demos. Early recordings, early demos, and with crowd noise added. And I think it's really good. It's not as good as their first 2 albums. It's probably not as good as Bullet House or whatever their 4th album was. But it's really good. It's got very early versions of I Got Levitation, Roller Coaster, You're Gonna Miss Me. It's got some covers like Before You Accuse Me, a Bo Diddley song, and Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. I would have liked to hear this without the crowd noise. Some of the songs don't even have drums on it, but most of them do. And this is definitely, I know this is a panned album, and I don't think it deserves to be. It's not a 5-star album, but it's a pretty good album, I think. And I've never actually heard any of their actual live albums, but I've heard they're not very good. well recorded. This one is pretty good. I mean, none of their albums are really well recorded, are they? Okay, 13th floor elevators. 13. Oh, they got all their. Okay, here live. And this one also is a 1, so it's not that hard to get. And of course, I have an original. I don't have an original of the 4s, but the last 3 records I showed were originals. As the elevators were falling apart, 1A put this, international artist, the label, put this infamous pseudo-live LP together from old demos and outtakes and added some very phony sounding applause. The release date is somewhere around August 1968. Man, a lot of these albums all came out in 68. In fact, they may all have. The LP was not a success, and unsold copies were still floating around 20 years later. For an Elevators fan, this is still mandatory, and due to the strength of the material and performances, a lot better than its reputation suggests. No mono mix exists. Reissues and bootlegs are too numerous to list. The crucial fact is that none of these, and possibly not even the International Artist box set reissue from 1978, are from master tapes. The 1978 IA box set release can be identified via a matrix number that begins in ACH. All other reissues or boots are easy to identify as such. During the 1980s through 90s, all original studio tapes used for compiling the IA live album, even the bullfight recording used for the fake applause, were found, and it's possible to reconstruct the album without the applause. However, these source tracks are best heard in their original context, some of them dating back to the band's earliest studio sessions in the spring of 1966. So yeah, it's pretty cool to hear these early versions. And it's kind of a shame they put the fake applause in there. But anyways, Acid Archives, searching for a thread, started this. And if you're wondering what I use for bookmarks, it's like the Home Depot junk mail that they sent, you know. Man, I can't believe in 2024 they still send out junk mail. Take care, everybody.